Hi, I'm Rocket. Welcome to another Whiteboarding with Rocket. In this session, I'm going to walk through the post-event review of the Office Hours Airship Studio live broadcast that happened this last Sunday, January 4th, 2026. So I have done a series of these whiteboards as I was going through trying to understand how things were going to route. When we got into the middle of it, I wanted to review what happened, what were some of the challenges, and what are some of the open questions. This is not a comprehensive list of issues and not a comprehensive list of open questions, but these are the ones that popped pretty hard for me after the event. With that, let me give you the rundown. In the room, we have vocals and instruments. This is the live room. This is the actual studio. We had two performers, one playing guitar, one doing vocals. That all goes through analog into Pro Tools. This is Elad's setup, and he has an interface from Pro Tools to Dante. And over that interface, he is sending the IEM mix for the artists. This is an Aviom system. It's based on Dante. So the artists have a panel in front of them. They can adjust the different channels and they can have their own mix. So they hear what they want to hear individually. There is another mix that I call the Elad mix. It's what he's doing. And we added another mix, which would be called the live mix. One of the things that happened here is when he was adjusting his mix, the live mix also adjusted. So we've got to figure that out. That's something to chase down. And then there were other channels. So the other channels were going out. So this is all on Dante and available to route to different places. We have the video switcher, the ATEM 2ME. It's a Constellation. And what we had was an AVIO adapter, so the Dante physical adapter, plugged into channel 1 and 2 input analog in the switcher. And so that was now available to be routed to destinations. And in this case, just because of a lot of the things that were going on, we had a sub-mixer, the ATEM SDI ISO. This has 4 ISO channels in it. You can capture 4 video channels. And we were sending program, the live mix, out to here, and then we were using this to go to YouTube. Now, this is definitely an area we will work on. What happened here is I had to repurpose one of the channels to be the live program mix, the video mix, instead of one of the camera channels. So I'll cover that when I cover the video feed on here, because this was one that really, it was one of those, we had web presenters available. It was just very much last minute, oh, we need to do something here. So I ended up kind of jury rigging something, if you will, to send out. So that went to YouTube. We have 2 Zoom rooms so that we can send out 8 camera feeds into Zoom, and then folks can pick those camera feeds and they can use their Zoom ISO systems, or any of the different systems that can capture individual Zoom video and audio channels, and they can pull that down into their system. In one of the Zoom rooms, we had Marcia, her audio was routed as a participant into Dante as channels 3 and 4. So these Zoom rooms are Dante enabled, and then they have Decklink Duo 2s, which have 4 video SDI channels in and out, in or out. So this was all 4 video channels, 4 video channels coming into here, 4 video channels coming into here. And this was program, 2 multi-views, and 1 of the cameras. And this was 4 more of the cameras. So we had a total of 6 cameras in this shoot. The thing that we ended up having to do, and it's not on this, but it will be on the video thing, is I ended up having to route another of the camera outputs to this Mac Mini command and control system and use an Ultra Studio to connect to it and then send it out as its own camera feed. That proved to be pretty challenging in the end, because any changes to the Zoom client in this command and control change the entire meeting resolution. So it would drop it down to 360p or bump it up to 720p. Ever so often it'd go to 1080. but I think this was the limiting factor. So we really want to look at what can we do here, do differently so that we don't hit that limitation going forward. We did have an X32. So the X32 was in there at one point. I was working with Mickey on how can we have a mix that's ducking that can be part of comms and be part of the Zoom feed or be part of it. And I looked at the Dugan Auto mix on the X32 and tried to route a few things to it. In the end, it was too much for this first test, but it's definitely something we will work on going forward. Because one of the ideas is if I'm actually taking all these feeds and I want to learn real time and I can set all this up, I would like to hear Marcia's call. And when she's making the call, the program feed should duck. So we have work to do there, and that's another opportunity. We'll work on the next one. So one of the other parts that happened here is this command and control system was running Unity comms, and I was taking the live mix from Dante and I was routing that to the Unity comms app that's on the machine, and it was logged in as a user that was broadcasting continually. So that was program feed. In Unity, we used we dropped that down to by negative 20 dB, so it wasn't overwhelming, but you could at least hear what was going on. So that fed into Unity. And all the operators were connected, so the camera ops, all the different people in the room were connected over Unity, and so they were getting that live feed if they wanted to. And what was nice was we set it up in such a way that if people wanted to hear it, they could turn that on or off. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Marcia's setup because this was definitely an area where we have a lot of things we can do to improve the experience. I think for her it was good. I think from the receiving side, we have some opportunities and some things we can work on. So she was connected to Zoom, and I was picking up from in the Zoom room, Dante's channels 3 and 4. I was picking her up, and so I could route that places. Now I didn't route it this time. At one point I had it going to the X32, and then I had live mix going to the X32, and I was doing the ducking there. I was testing that, and it wasn't working the way clean enough to actually introduce it as part of the show. But this is an interesting thing that we can do, and an opportunity is take her feed and feed it into Pro Tools so that Elad can capture it, and he'll have a separate audio file. So that way we will capture local comms. And one of the ideas is also taking a Unity user or whatever and feeding that into a Dante. And so it's capturing all the comms. So we'll get Marcia in particular, and then we'll get all of comms in another audio channel. When people are having conversations in the room, we can package those up as learnings, because I got to tell you, there was a 30-minute session when Marcia came in and worked on the different camera angles. It was a masterclass. I learned so much in 30 minutes about how to set up for a video shoot for two artists. I can't tell you. And part of the challenge is I didn't capture that. I didn't record that. And one of the things we want to be able to do is record those kind of sessions. And I definitely want that in place before the next one because the value is so high. So Marcia connected into Zoom. Now, one of the challenges that we encountered is her laptop. I think it was using her laptop microphone, and it was far enough away. And I suspect, and we'll follow up with her on this, I suspect she was using Unity on her iPhone. That makes a lot of sense. Now, the challenge with that is the program feed was coming out of the iPhone, and Zoom, when the mic was open, that program feed was coming back in and was doing echo cancellation. This is the theory. We don't know if this is true or not. And as a result of that, we end up with a situation where her audio feed, until she adjusted the laptop, it was really bad. It was cutting out. It was challenging. Now, fortunately for the actual live show, it got better, and I think we captured something that we can use. And several people have raised their hand and said, We have recordings and we're working on it. And so I'm very excited about that. So that's definitely an open question, is comms and Zoom, where do they co-live? Now, if you can't do comms and Zoom on a phone together. The Unity wants exclusive control over the audio channels, so it's not something you can coexist. But on a computer, I believe you can. This is the audio chain, the flow of things. It looks a lot simpler than it felt in the moment. So, but I'm glad I'm doing this because I'm able to really get clarity on where the gaps are. So what were some of the challenges? One of those things that I talked about was, can the comms feed to Zoom? So Marcia calling the show in Zoom, it did not sound good. And the program and her were at the same level. And so unless you had some way to isolate her feed in your local system and increase or decrease the volume, you really, you were listening to something and you were like, I really, especially when the girls started jamming and her calls were very hard to hear. In the studio, we wanted to have the program feed. Now, I had a nice monitor set up in the lobby. We didn't have a speaker, so we couldn't hear what was going on in the room. We definitely want to fix that. So if people were to come in and see what we were doing, we'd want them to hear. Questions then become, do we want to hear comms on that speaker? Do we want to be able to switch, have two speakers, one with comms and one with just the program feed? Right? All of a sudden it gets to be really interesting and we can dial up or dial down. We wanted to capture comms locally, capture the technical director, Marcia, individually, and then capture all of the chatter in another set of files. And then the YouTube mix was low. There were a couple of things that happened. So at one point, Elad pulled over and created a new, so he has his mix, and this was, he was noticing that he was adjusting faders. It was changing what was going out to YouTube. So he created a live mix out, a new bus, but he was noticing that even when he was doing that, it was still affecting that. So it was, pre-fader, post-fader. We don't know. This is an area we're definitely gonna look at. And then YouTube likes things hot. So it likes it up in the -2 range, usually, especially for music. So we got to bump that up. He's done another couple of mixes and we're working on syncing up the video with those and then making that available. When it comes to Marcia's setup, so we want to find out, how does she prefer to listen to the program feed? Does she want to listen to that on comms? Does she want to listen to it on Zoom? So we're going to make sure that whatever her preference is, we can accommodate that. Then can we get a good microphone for her so when she's calling the show, we're picking up good, and then make that microphone something that is going out both to comms and to Zoom, right? And that's the whole setup. Now, do we need loopback? There's a whole bunch of different things that we need to deal with there. So is that a longer session with her to talk through her setup? And yeah, probably. Then is she using comms on a laptop or a phone? If phone is easy because you can carry it with you, it's right there. So if we were to switch Unity to a laptop, that's different. Now you're clicking mice and you're doing all that kind of stuff. Is there something we could do to make that easier for her? For example, a lot of people have integrated Unity with Stream Decks. Now, is that Stream Deck Companion or is that just Stream Deck software from Elgato? Probably both of those are available. But can we make it where she's got a Stream Deck and she can just push the button and say, do her thing? That is the first take of this, and we'll see how we get on between now and our next show. A lot of open opportunities, a lot of things we're going to work on, and looking forward to it. With that, I'm Rocket. This has been another Whiteboarding with Rocket.